All right, y'all. First and foremost, give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and his son Hamashiach, who some call Yahweh Shai, Yeshua, Yehoshua. We mostly know as Jesus Christ. Um, this is part three. This is part three, y'all. We're getting very close. And then we'll talk. We trying to get to Herod, and we trying to get to this other point that I want to show y'all about John getting his head cut off, and what was the big beef? Why was um the wife? Why was Herod's wife so upset at John? And we're gonna see. We're gonna see why. Of course, I know why, but I want to build us up to that point, and then we can all know why. But we have to go through these 200 years, which is Hasmonean dynasty. Go past the Feast of Dedication. If you haven't watched part one, watch part one. Watch part two before you come to part three. But if you ain't watching it, sometimes you still can get a little piece. Especially this being the kind of like the end part where the Hasmonean dynasty is ending, and how did Rome get involved during the Feast of Dedication? That was us fighting back the Greeks. But once we see during the time of Christ, we see the Romans having us in subjugation, making us a vassal state, us having this treaty with them and being under taxation to them. And again, how do we get to the Herodians? How do we get to Herod? Understanding who the Parthians are, Pharisees, Sadducees. We kind of went over that. But let's go ahead and get this thing. Let me sit this mic down. I'm probably have to lean over and read. It says the end of the Hasmoneans, the rise of Rome. It says the decline of the Hasmoneans coincided with the rise of Rome, but it wasn't coincidence. For the once great Jewish family had become a shell of its holy roots. In the year 67 BCE, Queen Salome, Alexandra, also known as Queen Shalom Zion, died. With her, the dynasty of the Hasmoneans began a steady decline. Over the next 20 to 25 years, it would fall apart completely. Queen Salome left two sons, Hyrcanus and Aristobulus. Hyrcanus was weak, but as the older son had been appointed the high priest during his mother's life and became king after her death. Aristobulus had all the charisma and fierce leadership qualities of his father. Seems like one was a mama's boy, and the other one was fierce like his father. But the mama's boy was the oldest, and he had rights to the throne. Alexander Jannaeus, and you see this in the part two, where she there was beef there. There was beef between the two brothers on who's going to reign. We're going to see that beef come into fruition within this one. Alexander Jannaeus, that's the dude's father. However, he also had a great deal of negative qualities, including being a very headstrong, opinionated, temper-prone, and violent, and his attitudes were more in line with the Sadducees than the Pharisees. Also having here, the mama's boy was with the Pharisees. Pharisees at this point wanted Torah. They were Torah-based. They wanted us going back to Torah. They were very heavy on us keeping the law and keeping the traditions of our forefathers. The Sadducees were kind of like, hey man, let's get with it. Let's modernize this thing. Let's get with the customs of the Romans. Let's try to be movers and shakers in these politics and try to gain influence and start conquering certain areas, making treaties with these folks. They were kind of into Hellenization. All right, Sadducees were kind of Hellenized, and it was kind of they kind of wanted to push that on Israel for political reasons, financial reasons, etc. As long as their mother was in charge, she kept the lid on the pot, so to speak. However, the moment she died, the two were literally at each other's throat for the right to the succession. So again, Hyrcanus was the Pharisees. Mama boy was the Pharisee, pretty much. Was with the Pharisees, aligned with the Pharisees, and younger brother Aristobulus was with his father, Alexander Jannaeus, who was siding with the Sadducees. All right, very important. And then this Queen Salome. A lot of brothers went, Israel ain't never had no queen, and this is the second queen, Queen Salome, and she was She was of good report. All right, because she rescued these Pharisees and got us back aligned with Torah. War again in 65 BCE after feeble attempts at an accommodation. Aristobulus' army attacked Hyrcanus. They battled outside Jericho. Aristobulus won and captured Hyrcanus as terms of the ransom for his release. Hyrcanus agreed to relinquish the throne. Okay, as terms of the ransom, Hyrcanus said, "You know what? I'll give up the throne. You got it. You got it. You can become king. Just let me go." All right, the younger brother took over. All right, he took over. The agreement lasted about 6 weeks. It only lasted about 6 weeks. He took back up. But watch this now. It was undermined by an advisor of Hyrcanus named Antipater. An Idumean convert. All right. So Hyrcanus has an advisor. Yeah, he's a Pharisee, but he has an advisor. Hyrcanus. He's an advisor to Hyrcanus. He has an advisor named Antipater, who was an Idumean convert, who would become the father of Herod. A couple of generations earlier, the Idumeans had been forcefully converted against the will of the rabbis, and now it would come back to haunt the Jewish people. And this is one of the things too with the Pharisees. Pharisees wanted, they wanted everybody to get. That's why they started building synagogues all over the place. Antipater was as talented as an administrator and was ambitious. He is the one who really stirred the pot and convinced Hyrcanus that he had a chance to become the king again. Always scheming, he organized Hyrcanus' army, but one that was loyal to him, bringing in mercenaries and organizing the offer corps out of his own Idumean compatriots. All right, so he's organizing. John Hyrcanus is already Hyrcanus had already been defeated by his younger brother, but Antipater, this Idumean advisor, this Idumean convert, was his advisor and the one reorganizing and putting his military back together. But Antipater is putting together a military that's loyal to him. All right, so he's not getting a lot of Jews. He's not putting a lot of Jews in this thing. He's getting more Idumeans. He's bringing in mercenary groups, people that's, hired, for paid soldiers. Yeah, pretty much that's it. Antipater then led this army against Aristobulus. All right, once he got that army back set up for Hyrcanus, and that's how this is why Hyrcanus is using him and saying, hey, you know what, man, yeah, you can be my advisor, you can be, I trust you, because now this man done built up an army after he done already lost, built up an army to go back and, man, we can capture that throne, man. Let some of my brothers, let's build an army of Edomites and some of these brothers over here. Man, we can go take that kingdom back. Man, we can put you back on the throne of Judea. Antipater then led his army against Aristobulus, routed it, and forced the remnants to retreat to the temple area. The rest of Jerusalem and the entire country now came under the domain of Hyrcanus. So Hyrcanus took the kingdom back, but it was done by Antipater. All right, it was done by an Idumean convert. Okay, the pig that shook the world. It says the Western Wall or the Wailing Wall is one of the most famous symbols of Judaism today. However, it was only a remnant of the much larger wall that surrounded the courtyard of the temple. On the Temple Mount itself, it was a fortress of Antoninus. Yeah, y'all pray for me on that one. Which was virtually impregnable fortress. Whoever controlled the temple area. Aristobulus and the remnants of his army now took up residence there. As long as they held the fortress, they were capable of repelling all attacks and holding out for a long time. As strange as it seems, despite their animosity toward each other, the two sides made an agreement to make sure that the twice daily sacrifice was offered. Every day, the army on the outside would send up the necessary sheep to be slaughtered. The priests inside the temple, who were neutral, continued doing all their daily deeds. The siege lasted months and showed no sign of ending. One day, an advisor convinced Hyrcanus to send up a pig instead. I wonder who that advisor was. But now we have an advisor again dealing with Hyrcanus. The mama's boy. He's not a great leader. Mama's boys. Oh, let me stop. I ain't gonna go there. An advisor convinced Hyrcanus to send up a pig instead of a sheep. The Talmud said that when the pigs scraped its hooves against the walls of the temple of the land of Israel, scraped its hooves against the walls of the temple of the land of Israel, the land of Israel shook for 400 miles. I gotta make it make sense, y'all. So if you see me rereading it, this is just so I can make sense of this sense. But they probably need to comment there. Of the temple, the land of Israel shook to 400 miles. I call cap on that. I don't know if that really actually happened, if it's some archaeological proof that happened, or somebody else written about it that happened. This is a Jewish non-messianic source, so and this is really just paraphrasing some history. I don't know if we can even call it a source like that. It was one of the low points in Jewish history. The Hasmoneans had initiated the rebellion when the Greeks forced Jews to sacrifice pig to their gods, and now their descendants were killing each other and sending up a pig to the temple. What it's talking about there is that the whole feast of dedication was about. It started with the Greeks defiling the temple, sacrificing a pig on the altar. That's what started the Great War, and now we at a point. We don't fought back the Greeks, and now we in a point when we ruling ourselves, and we're at a point where two brothers are fighting each other for the throne. We had a civil war, and now we're sending pigs up to be sacrificed on the throne. How ironic. Enter Rome. Now Rome's coming into play. He says this led the entrance of Rome into Jewish life. One of the major turning points in Jewish history. It came in on the sword of the general by the name of Pompey, who in his modesty called himself Pompey the Great. In the year 70 BCE, he conquered Spain for Rome. He then came east and conquered Greece. He then came further east and conquered the Parthians, who inhabited modern-day Turkey and Iran. And then he turned his attention south to the Mediterranean basin. He was talented, ruthless general, as well as an extremely shrewd man. He was the first great Roman leader to understand that Rome could not successfully control the Middle East if it did not control Judea. Even if Judea was merely a neutral independent, it would serve as a wedge between the northern empire Syria and the southern empire Egypt. Therefore, he looked for a way to get himself in power in Judea. Ideally, he did not want to do it through war, because the Jews, the Hasmonean Maccabees, had a fearsome reputation. The Romans referred to the Jews as porcupines. Just as porcupines is an animal that even great predators avoid, so too the Jews. Even if you ate it, you would be sorry. Therefore, Pompey wanted to control the Jews without somehow going to war. The civil war between Hyrcanus and Aristobulus presented a golden opportunity. It was the key that would allow Rome into Jerusalem. This civil war. Of course, once Rome was allowed in it would never leave. Once Rome was allowed in, it would never leave. Brother ain't got no commas. He just forgetting commas. Its influence would grow exponentially over the next century until the Jews would have enough and mount a rebellion. Pompey's compromise. All right, in the year 64 BCE, Pompey appeared in Damascus. The Jews sent 3 delegations. First Hyrcanus, then Aristobulus. Each argued why Rome should side with them. A third group was sent by the Sanhedrin, who would told Pompey to ignore both groups, let the Sanhedrin, the rabbis, run the country. All 3 groups apparently agreed that some type of Roman intervention would be welcomed. All right, so once the Romans coming in, it's kind of like a stalemate on this civil war. Hyrcanus has Aristobulus them trapped up there in the temple. They're still trying to do the sacrifices. They done got even wicked with that, and they sent up a darn pig instead of a sheep. Um, and now they want Rome to come in, or third party to come in to kind of change the tide. Whoever Rome sides with, that's who's going to win, because it's at a stalemate now. And so both parties send someone to speak to Rome and try to convince Rome to be on their side, and also the Sanhedrin, the scribes, the Pharisees, the rabbis, the sages. They sent a representative also to dialogue with Rome to try to convince them to let them run the country instead of Hyrcanus and Aristobulus. Let it be run by the Sanhedrin. All right, all three groups apparently agreed that some type of intervention will be welcome. Pompey took his time responding in the year 63 BCE. He arrived in Jerusalem. Hyrcanus and his army promptly withdrew. All right, once Pompey came in, Hyrcanus got up out of there. All right, Hyrcanus, he got up out of there. Aristobulus surrendered and was sent along with his family. Hyrcanus and his army promptly withdrew. Aristobulus surrendered and was sent along with his family to Rome, where they were degraded in Roman processional triumph. Nevertheless, his forces fought on against Pompey and Hyrcanus. However, after 2 months, the Romans broke through their stronghold and massacred some 12,000 of the Jews defending the temple. Wow. So Hyrcanus, he got up out of there. Once Pompey came, and but initially I'm thinking, well, he got up out of there because he's trying to, he's scared of Pompey. Well, he is kind of, I guess he's kind of scared of what, but Pompey is actually on his side, and he's going in to, hey man, probably like stepping aside and, hey man, let us handle this. And the Romans went up there and got Aristobulus and them out of that temple, killed 12,000 of them. All right, and then they took Aristobulus and degraded him. Took him to Rome and degraded him. Probably fed him to the lions or something. I don't know. Yes, but you can probably find some of this information in Josephus. Look at that. According to Josephus, Pompey stepped into the Holy of Holies, the innermost sanctum of the temple. However, he did not take any booty or otherwise interrupt the temple service. The next day, he withdrew the Roman army from the Temple Mount and returned it to the authority of the Jews. Nevertheless, for all practical purposes, Judea was now under Roman domination. Pompey let Hyrcanus remain the high priest and even called himself king, but the title was nominal. Before he left, he had the walls of Jerusalem leveled, making it defenseless. He also imposed harsh taxes. 6 years later, in 57 BCE, Pompey appointed a governor in Syria, Gabinius, who would have ultimate control over the affairs in Judea. This cemented the fact that Hyrcanus was king only in name, not in deed. His work done in Jerusalem, Pompey went home to Rome expecting to be made emperor. Enters Julius Caesar. However, he had strong competition for the job from a man by the name of Julius Caesar, who was a great general in his own right. He did in the west what Pompey did in the east, subduing the peoples in what is today England, France, and the Rhineland of Germany. These two great Roman generals had an agreement between them. Rome would be run by the triumvirate, i.e. a committee of three. However, the triumvirate did not last. After 5 years, it fell apart, which left Pompey and Caesar jockeying for control. The Roman Senate backed Pompey, but Caesar boldly marched his army across Rubicon, the river that marked the boundary between Italy proper and its provinces to the north. Roman law forbade Roman army to cross the river. In doing so, Caesar was committing an act of war. As Caesar's army entered Rome, Pompey and the Senate fled for their lives. Caesar declared himself emperor and pursued Pompey all the way to Egypt. Once there, he committed a rare tactical blunder and found himself and his army besieged in Alexandria by Pompey and his allies. Hyrcanus had been an official ally of Pompey. All right, look what we got here now. Hyrcanus, Pompey came in, helped Hyrcanus take back the kingdom, but he put somebody in there, kind of took the power away from him. But gave him kingdom. He could say he was a king in power, but not in deed. All right, so but now Pompey's on the run from Caesar, and Caesar done ran him all the way to Alexandria, Egypt. Done ran him all the way into Egypt. But when Caesar and them gets to Egypt, Pompey and them, pretty much set a trap. He had some allies already there, and pretty much got a trap for Caesar and them, got him in trouble. And these, wait a minute. Okay, right here. Hyrcanus had been an official ally of Pompey. However, the shrewd Antipater, who's Antipater? That's the Idumean convert. That's the advisor that advised, that built the army for Hyrcanus to, run his brothers and them up into the temple. This same Antipater, this is Herod's father, this first Herod. This is his father. However, the shrewd Antipater now convinced Hyrcanus to switch sides and declare his allegiance to Caesar. They then committed over 3,000 Jewish soldiers to an expeditionary force that invaded Egypt and helped the siege of Alexandria. Okay, and this is why you read Sirach, and he said, "Hey man, we went up to Alexandria and got this book translated, and why it's millions. It's a papyri from Alexandria talking about asking how to keep Passover, but it was millions of Jews, 3 to 5 million Jews, I want to say, but Google it. Don't take my word for it. That were in Alexandria, Egypt during the time of Christ, first century. They then committed over 3,000 soldiers, Jewish soldiers, to an expeditionary force. In Alexandria, Egypt ain't black Egypt. That's a city, Alexandria, named after Alexander the Great. All right, it's a border city that they built up, that Rome built up. I mean, the Greeks. I think the Greeks built it up. Greeks built up for trade. And that's where that great library was that got burned up. Anyway, Egypt and helped raise the siege of Alexandria. Thus, the Roman civil war ended. When the Roman civil war ended in Julius Caesar's complete victory, Hyrcanus was in the fortuitous position. Pray with me on that one. And on the verge of realizing his lifelong dream of becoming the king. So there was a civil war between Julius Caesar and Pompey. Hyrcanus ends up switching sides, and man, that's kind of crazy. But he ended up switching sides and helping Caesar defeat Pompey. And he's hoping that Caesar's gonna make things a little better for him and give him the power that he wants, that he's been dreaming of. Caesar ends the Roman era. It says, indeed, Caesar showed the Jews his gratitude for their help. He revoked the harsh decrees and burdensome taxation imposed by Pompey. He also allowed the walls of fortification of Jerusalem to be rebuilt and restored Jaffa, as well as a number of other coastal cities to Jewish rule. Jaffa is a very beautiful place, from the pictures anyway. He gave Hyrcanus the position of high priest. However, in a surprise move, he did not give him the title of king. Even if he had, need a comma there, it would have been in name only, because he gave the real power. Because he gave the real power a Roman legate or procurator, who would make all the crucial decisions in the land of Judea. That person was none other than Antipater, the advisor, the scheming non-Jewish general of Hyrcanus' army. For all practical purposes, the real power now lay with Antipater. Why? Because Antipater is the one who advised. See, Antipater was already making them plays. Antipater was like 5-6 steps ahead of Hyrcanus. Why? Because he was the one making all the plans. Listen, man, I can get your army back together. All right, and he's probably went back to Rome, probably went back to, Julius Caesar, like, listen, man, I'm the one that built the army and got this man back in position where he can run them into the temple. Then Pompey came, right? Now I can get him, I can definitely convince him, with my army, with that same army, they really are loyal to me. They ain't loyal to him. They really loyal to me. They ain't loyal to Hyrcanus. I can get them. I can convince him to ally with you, and then I can get my soldiers to fight with you, and so they trust Antipater. They don't trust like when well, no, that wasn't it. I was finna say when Pompey came in, him running, but that was, but he probably ran. They can speculate that he ran probably when, no. He sided with Caesar. He just listened to Antipater. He just listened to Antipater. But Antipater is the one. He's the brain. And that was smart on Julius Caesar's part. All right. That was very smart on his part. So he did right by Israel, but he didn't give Hyrcanus what he wanted. He put Antipater in that position instead. All right, put him in position instead because he was the one calling all the moves, giving the advice, making the calls, built up the army, etc. Tell me how y'all feel about that. Y'all hit the comments. Tell me how you feel about that. In the perfect hindsight, and that was end up being the era. That was the last Hasmonean. Hyrcanus there was the last Hasmonean. Now we get into the area of the Herodian dynasty with Antipater, Herod's father, being this person that's in place, this procreator. Y'all pray with me on that one. If y'all know the pronunciation, y'all put some. I done heard it a few times, but it ain't coming to mind. In perfect hindsight, we wonder at the naivety, the stupidity, basically, of Hyrcanus and other protagonists in this real life soap opera, having learned early on what it meant to get the Romans involved in local politics. How could they have continued to do so? However, Hyrcanus was under the spell of Antipater and as well as blinded by his own lust for power. Because he wanted to be king at all costs, he made one tactical error after another. The two greatest Jewish scholars at one time, Shemaiah and Atalan, commented obliquely on the matter in their exhortation to ethical behavior in Jerusalem's primary volume on the subject Ethics of the Fathers. Shemaiah said, hate power and do not make yourself known to the government. In other words, keep a low profile, because what is destroying the Jewish people is the lust for power, as demonstrated by its political leaders. All right, they have they got a little saying in they Ethics of the Fathers. Hey, man, lay low. Lay low. Hate power. I don't know about that. They can be, they some powerful people, but they are laying low. It's hard for you to put names on it. We can just point the finger at these folks, but it's hard for us to put names on it. Kanye, one of the few people that was putting names out there. Absalom, rabbis, be careful with your words. Perhaps you will be exiled. Rabbis, he warned, do not make statements on political matters. Your words will become known to the ruling power. You will be sent into exile, and your disciples will be leaderless and come to ruin. These two, and this is, I can agree with these two statements. I think we should glean from these two statements Um, we've gotten ourselves in trouble getting into certain political matters and shine the light on us. I'm saying we need to build quietly. We too loud, and we ain't even doing nothing, and we loud. Um, these two cryptic statements reveal the tenor of the times. In essence, the rabbinic approach was to withdraw from political activity when one could do nothing about it anyway. All right, when there ain't nothing you can do anyway, when it comes to a point of where you just listen, you either gonna march in or you gonna kill them. But you gonna march, shout, hold picket signs, or you can, what power do you have? And if you don't have much power and you can't do nothing about it, hey, they saying, hey man, it's this is a lesson on, just being quiet about it and keep building, keep doing something, keep building and doing something to put yourself in position to do something about it next time it happens. Yeah. The two cryptic statements reveal the tenor of the times. In essence, the rabbinic approach was to withdraw from political activity when one could do nothing about it anyway. The focus should be on the root of the problem. Should be on the root of the problem, which was the lust for power. And that's what we have to deal when we start looking at certain things. I got something else I'm gonna do right after this. But let me just get through this. If those in power were beyond hope, then implant in future generations lessons that would preempt the horrible excesses caused by hubris and lust for power. In so doing, the great Torah leaders Shemaiah and Avtalon transcended the issues of their days and provided external lessons that echo in the ears of all generations down to our days. As we will see, Shemaiah and Avtalon's disciple Hillel took their approach to the next level. Anyway, pray this thing was edifying. Y'all hit the comments, tell me what you think. Make sure you like, subscribe. Shalom, Israel, be blessed.